How is it going, guys? Today we're going to be ranking every single taillight for the GR86 and BRZ that we can find. Now, I am pretty confident that I'm one of very few people that have owned way too many taillights for these cars, which makes me super qualified for this job. And needless to say, taillights are an aesthetic upgrade that is very subjective. So my opinion may differ from yours, doesn't mean that we can't be friends. It just means that you have bad taste. I'm just kidding. You can like whatever you want. That's what makes modifying cars so fun. If we all like the same things, our cars would look similar and that would just be boring. So with that out of the way, let's jump right into it and take a look at the stock taillights to start. Subaru and Toyota actually did a very good job with the stock taillights. Unlike the first gen, they've upgraded everything to LEDs, so we don't have to worry about halogen bulbs burning out and swapping them out or anything like that. The design itself is sleek, simple, and it flows well with the rest of the rear end of the car. And when this car first got announced, a lot of people were hating on how it looks. I feel like that's just what happens when things get announced. People like to hate on things. A lot of people were saying like the taillights look like Civic taillights, which I don't understand because they really don't. I think the stock taillights on this car are super solid, especially with a set of aftermarket or set of tinted overlays on there. It looks great. You really don't have to change the taillights on these cars for them to look good. So these are a solid option. We're gonna put these in the A tier. We're gonna jump to the Dragon Scale taillights next. These were the first aftermarket taillights that I installed on the GR86. The Dragon Scale design itself is actually really cool. It lends itself to the shape of the taillight, but I'm not a big fan of the lens shape on these because it's just a flat lens versus the OEM shape, which has that recess where the turn signal is. So these don't flow very well with the black accent that goes across the trunk. Now, as for the functions on here, the startup sequence on these is a bit too long. Maybe even more than a bit too long. It's 15 seconds. It looks cool, but it can just be too much after you watch it for a while. And I think these are only available in a smoked option. There's no red lens or clear lens or anything like that. So we're gonna toss these into the C tier. Not the worst, but definitely could be better. Let's see here. We've got the HRS taillights here. These are most well known for the clear versions, although the ones I installed on my car first were the smoked version. Very similar design to the Dragon Scales, but these do have the recess where the OEM turn signal is. And the sequential turn signal is a bit different than on most taillights that we see because it more so goes across the length of the taillight in smaller sections versus just filling out the turn signal sections. The startup sequence on these, a bit more practical than the Dragon Scales because these are 5 seconds long instead of the 15 seconds. They're also available in different colorways, so you get smoke lens, red lens, clear lens option. These are also a solid choice. I'm teetering on the B, A tier. We're gonna toss these into the A tier because I do think they look good. All right, what's next? Intec taillights. Super unique designs, interesting to look at. The ones they made for the first gen were interesting as well, but not in a good way. They went for more of a sharp design on these versus the curve of the OEM taillight. I think it can work on some builds that are a bit more aggressive, maybe a big wing on the car, but I'm not sold on the multiple sharp corners of those parking lights because I feel like it just disrupts the smooth flow of the body lines of the car. I am, however, a big fan of the addition of the trunk light. but if I remember correctly, I think the trunk light section of these taillights just installs over the top of that OEM trunk garnish, and it adds a significant bulge to the trunk. Some people like big bulges. If that's your preference, nothing against you. I just don't think it looks great when there's a lot of material sticking out where there didn't used to be. So we're gonna toss these into the C category along with those dragon scale lights. Okay, I'm gonna call these the Y-shape taillights. I found these on eBay. These are by far the worst looking taillights I have ever seen for these cars. I have no idea what they were thinking. It looks sort of like a bottom half of a stick figure to me. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't work with the body lines of the car. It doesn't flow into anything. It's trash. The brake light also seems really small on these, which I feel like could be a visibility problem during the day. Obviously not a huge fan of these. I don't get it. I do not understand what was going through their head when they designed these. F. Straight F, fail, terrible. Okay, let's go to the next one. We've got the VLANDs. These also have a very unique design that you don't see on any other taillight, but in a very good way. I love the matrix design on the lens when you turn on the headlights to see the parking lights. Really cool to see lit up. You retain that OEM lens shape, so again, it has that recess, so it flows well with the rest of the rear end of the car. You also have these crystal jewels on the inside of the tail light for the brake light, and then the top portion of the light acts as both the parking light and also the turn signal, and it wraps around the whole taillight assembly, unlike other taillights where it just stops on that edge of the corner. This goes all the way throughout the taillight assembly, which is going to improve the visibility to those that are behind you and to the side of you as well. And these are available with either a smoke lens or a red lens. I really love the red lens, especially on my red car. These are an A tier. Okay, what do we have next? Valenti taillights. Valentis were some of the most popular taillights on the first gen, but we're not seeing them as often on these second gens, probably because of how expensive they are. But in my opinion, they are worth every penny. These, honestly, probably my favorite taillights for the GR86 and BRZ. These are the only taillights that I think are able to get away without having that recess in the lens shape because of how they've designed the lights inside of the housing. They do have, it's not a completely flat lens shape. There is a bit of a recess, so it does sort of flow into the black accent across the trunk, but it's not like the OEM recess at all. It's a completely different design from any other light in terms of its shape and functionality. They've retained that boomerang swoosh that they are very well known for, especially in the previous taillights on the first gen. And then they've added these vertical bars on the inside, which look so damn good. It's super bright, it's visible. The functions are customizable, so you can change the functions of the boomerang and the vertical bars if you want to see which one turns on when you turn your headlights on or when you step on the brake. They're available in a red lens option or a smoke lens option. I'm not as big of a fan of the smoke lens option. I love how the red lens option looks. I think that works on pretty much any car. especially the red on red, it just hits different. These are our first S tier taillights. They look fantastic. All right, what's following the Valentis? We have the SARD taillights. I have not seen these in person, but I can't get on board with these. They remind me of the Intec taillights for the first gen, which I hated. For me, the circular taillights just do not work on these cars because the shape of the taillight itself has some pretty sharp angles. It feels out of place. And you compare that to, let's compare that to circular lights on, say, a Ferrari or the Nissan Skylines. The round lights are much more fitting on those cars because of the curvature of the body lines on those cars. To me, it just looks like an alien. Am I the only one that puts like faces on cars, and that's how I remember cars? Is that weird? And I can't be the only one that does that. These aren't doing it for me. We're putting these in the F tier along with those Y-shaped taillights. They're not as bad. I will say that. They're not as bad as those Y-shaped taillights, but they aren't good. All right, we're jumping to the AlphaRex taillights. These are the ones that I currently have installed on my car right now. Again, another completely different design that you don't see anywhere else. The lens shape does have a recess in the center of the light, and it's outlined by a solid enclosed parking light. So when the taillights are on, that whole outer section is lit up. It's almost like giving the rear end of the car sunglasses. Looks really great. The startup sequence actually utilizes the parking light with a snake effect, and then it fades in. And then the inside of the light, where the recess is where the turn signal is located, as well as the brake light. And during the day, the brake light is not only that intersection, but it's the outer parking light as well. So these are very visible. And then when you pair this with the trunk light, it brings everything together, and it gives the rear end of the car such an eye-catching look. And the way they have incorporated every single light assembly that they have for the rear end of these cars, so the fourth brake light, the tail lights, the trunk light, all of those are integrated into the startup sequence. When you have all of them installed, looks amazing. They have a clear option, smoke option, red option. We gotta toss these into the S tier. Again, super unique look. At night when these are on, it catches your eye right away. All right, AVEST V1 taillights. You're never gonna unsee this. Every time you see this now, this is what you're gonna think of. These taillights look like mouths. So that outer sea light section are the lips, and then on the inside you have the turn signal and the brake lights. Those are the teeth. It looks like a mouth. They're just talking to each other on both sides. That's all I see. That's all I see when I look at these lights, and it just is not the best look. The smoke lens option isn't as bad because it kind of hides the teeth, and it looks a little bit less like a mouth, but like I said, you can't unsee it. It kind of just gives me a meh vibe, so we're gonna toss these into the B tier, first B tier. Again, not the worst, just okay. AVEST also has a V2 taillight, and these, quite honestly, give the Y-shaped taillights a run for their money in terms of being the worst taillights for these cars. There's just so much going on inside these taillights. I don't know what to look at. First, you have the boomerang parking light that does not match the shape of the taillight whatsoever. And then you have the brake light that is also an odd shape. and it just seems like they stuffed that in there like an afterthought. And to top it all off, you have these turn signals that look like little sperm swimming inside the taillight. It's so bad. I mean, look at these taillights when they are on. What is that? It's a monstrosity. They look like hot garbage. It's bad, guys. I don't know what's worse, these or the Y-shaped taillights. Let me know in the comment section down below, because both of them are just shit. If you have these installed in your car, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Again, different opinions. Let's move on to the next ones. Okay, Spyder taillights. These are a bit confusing to look at first because the inside of the taillights look nothing like the OEM taillights. I actually saw these at SEMA, I think it was 2 years ago at the Spyder booth. They're a Porsche style taillight, if you have seen those before. So you have two horizontal bars that are gonna be the parking lights, so that's what lights up when you turn your headlights on. And then there's these 4 smaller dashes around those 2 bars, so 2 up top and then 2 on the bottom. Those are the brake lights. I feel like that might be a bit inadequate. Excuse me. And maybe hard to see at night, or more hard to see during the day, but I may be wrong. Again, I haven't seen these actually on a car. I only saw them at the booth. The turn signal is, I think it's a sequential turn signal that is in the center of those 2 parking light bars. The greeting light is kind of cool, but other than that, these don't work on our cars. I know these cars were supposed to be a more affordable Porsche, but that doesn't mean we should take their designs and put them on our cars. This is another F tier for me. Better than the other F tiers, but not quite a C. It's still a failing grade. We've got a lot of Fs so far. Not good. And it might not get any better. So these next ones are the 78 Works RS series taillights. At first glance, you might mistake these for the SARD taillights, but they're actually a bit different. These have 2 large round lights instead of 1 small and 1 large one like these SARD lights. That being said, I still have the same problem with these as I had before. The round lights just do not blend well with the rear end of this car. They look like these eyes that are awkwardly gazing into my soul, and I hate it. If I had to choose though, these might just eke out the SARD lights because of their uniformity. This 3/4 rear end view doesn't make them look as bad, but any other angle and they just look completely out of place. I think we gotta put these in the F tier. I'd say like these are like an F plus. Yeah, it's still another F. Okay, moving on. Lobster tail lights. These legit look like lobster claws. Maybe I've been craving seafood too much or something, but at least they're somewhat simplistic and not absolute chaos going on inside of there. So the claws are gonna be the parking light. So those are what lights up at night. So they're gonna be really visible because they take up the majority of the tail lights. Inside the claws are 3 vertical bars. Those are gonna be the brake lights. And then the bottom of the tail light is the sequential turn signal. They kind of remind me of the new Valenti WRX taillights, the VB WRX taillights, but sort of a cheap knockoff version. I'm sure there's people that don't mind these. I'm just not a huge fan of them. they're not as bad as some of the other ones that we've seen, so we can toss these into the C category. Okay, Invoke Concepts, they're clear taillights. These are essentially the stock taillights, but cleared. And the functions are a bit different as well. They do have a smoke version as well, which is nice because I don't think clear taillights work on every single color. The parking light on these, like the stock taillights, are that outer C light section. The brake is gonna be the center section, and then the turn signal is the center section as well. But these actually have a reverse light built in. So you would connect these to the reverse light on the bottom of the bumper, and that outer C light functions as the reverse light. So it does add some functionality over the stock taillights. And because of that, I think we're gonna toss these into the A category. Solid choice. The smoke might be a little bit too dark. I don't know. I haven't seen these in person lit up, but the clear versions do look good on some builds. Okay, Invoke Concepts has another taillight option, which is their matrix style taillights. These are essentially just a bunch of LEDs stuffed into a taillight housing. A bit gimmicky, but probably really cool on a show car, because you could likely have it displaying a bunch of different animations while your car is at the car show to catch people's eyes. But in terms of how they actually look on a car driving around, they look like what you'd expect from a bunch of individual LEDs. You see each individual LEDs, it's just not aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't go well with anything else on the rear end of the car. I think they might have a fourth brake light as well, but again, this just feels like something that would be on a show car, completely for show, not as much functionality. It doesn't flow well with the body lines of the car. It's just there so you can play around with it and look cool at car shows. We're tossing these into the C category. And that is gonna wrap it up for all the different GR86 and BRZ taillights. I think I got them all. If I missed one, let me know in the comment section down below. Let's see, we've got 2 S tiers, 4 A tiers, 1 B tier, 4 C tiers, and then 5 F tiers. A little bottom heavy there, but still a decent amount of solid choices. I go back to that stock one. You really don't need to change out to aftermarket taillights. But if you like customizing your car like I do, which is why I own too many taillights, then there are still some great options to be had. But let me know what you guys think. Do you agree with my rankings? Which ones did you guys love? Which ones did you absolutely hate and should burn to the ground? I would love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. But that is gonna do it for today. If you guys have any questions whatsoever on anything, let me know in the comment section down below. If you're enjoying these ranking videos, I know I did one for the body kits of the GR86 and BRZ as well as the first gen, and you guys seem to love those. So maybe we need to do more of these, sit down, talk about just car parts, shoot the shit. Let me know. But if you're enjoying the content, give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button down below to show your support. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.